let's start. The Israel and Iranian conflict is very confusing to me for the past week, right? Trump came out saying, oh, there's a ceasefire, but none of them said anything. But then later, Iran come out and said, okay, we will stop if Israel stop bombing us, before 4 o'clock, something like that. But then it seems like there was a ceasefire, but then both sides accused the other side, you know, not following through, what have you. So do we have a real ceasefire now? It seems like we do have a ceasefire now, is it? Can you explain the whole thing?
No, I don't think we've got a ceasefire. I think what we have is a situation where neither side is currently attacking the other.
Okay.
But I don't think there's been an agreement to have a ceasefire. And I think that is an important distinction. What I think happened, and by the way, when you say that it's confusing and complicated, I mean, like hell, it's the most complex, in fact, chaotic sequence of events that I have ever seen. A conflict conducted in the most eccentric and bizarre way. But as I said, speaking about what we have at the moment, my understanding is what happened was this: the Americans, the Israelis contacted the Americans, um, informing them, this is about a week ago, that Israel was running out of missiles and needed the conflict to end quickly.
Mhm.
They were pressing the Americans to attack Iran. Trump had said that he would probably decide within 2 weeks whether or not to attack Iran. Israel said, we cannot wait 2 weeks. We
Mhm.
have to do it now because in 2 weeks' time we will be exhausted. It's not just that we're running out of missiles, but our only international airport is closed. Our ports are closed. Our industrial facilities aren't working. So we need this to end fast. So Trump then decided to go ahead and attack Iran because he was under all that pressure. If you then followed his messages that he published on Truth Social over that incredible day, the day after the attack, I mean, he began to get increasingly nervous and frightened. The reports started to appear that the Iranians were going to close the Straits of Hormuz. He said that we need to keep the price of oil low because if it goes higher, that will work to the benefit of the enemy. He used the word enemy, and he was clearly talking about Iran. He then published another post saying, drill, baby, drill. We need to drill and supply ourselves all that oil. He then got Marco Rubio to telephone China. We don't know who he spoke to in China, by the way. The American media has never said much, but apparently they did contact China. And they asked China, can you please ask the Iranians not to close the Gulf of Hormuz? And if you do that, we're not going to try and interfere with your oil exports, your oil imports from Iran. That's another whole story we will come to. And then the news started to come through that the Iranians were about to attack the American bases in the Middle East, but they gave warnings about this to the Americans in advance. So Trump was, incredibly worried that this would escalate and get out of control, and that there would be a forever war. And his base was getting increasingly angry and frustrated with him. And then you saw his sense of relief when, as I said, the attacks from the Iranians against the American bases turned out to be more token than real, which everybody accepts, even Trump himself accepts. So he then announces, as he always does, that there's going to be a ceasefire. And of course, he didn't apparently talk about this either with the Israelis or with the Iranians. The Iranians had always said that if the Israelis stopped attacking them, they would stop attacking Israel.
Mhm.
So Trump told the Israelis to stop. At that point, the Israelis were very unhappy. They didn't like the way it was done at all, because undoubtedly what they were hoping was that if the Americans attacked one time, then the Americans would go on attacking, and that would continue the war. That was what their intention was. But anyway, Trump comes along, tells them to stop. The Iranians apparently don't reply. They're in no direct contact with the Americans, but um, they don't make any kind of message, but they do continue to say if they are not attacked, they will stop attacking Israel. Israel then announces that the Iranians have broken the ceasefire and have launched 2 missiles against them and that they're going to attack Israel. Trump then becomes absolutely furious with Israel and speaks to Netanyahu and apparently swears at him and swears in public as well and tells Netanyahu, pull back your aircraft and stop doing this. And the result is, after all of this, we get into this situation where the Americans aren't attacking Iran, Israel isn't attacking Iran, and as a result, Iran isn't attacking Israel and the United States. But there has been no agreement. I'm fairly confident that I have outlined it correctly, that this is how it all came about. I should say that this is one instance when I'm not just reading Trump's Truth Social posts. Various people have been in contact with me. I don't want to say too much. And I have, perhaps for the first time ever, had information from within the administration, which helps to sort of put the pieces together. But this is what happened. I mean, he basically realized that Israel was running out of military equipment, that its economy was about to collapse, and that the Israelis, in desperation, were trying to get the United States involved in an indefinite war with the Strait of Hormuz closed and all of this. And he panicked and he brought the whole thing to a stop.
So you think Marco Rubio's contact somebody in China, the phone call basically are saying, can you ask the Iranian not to close the Strait of Hormuz? In return, you can continue to buy oil from
Yeah.
Iran without we sanction you. So basically, that's the phone call was
Well,
about.
that's the spin the
Oh,
Americans are pushing. You know what
okay.
I think happened?
Mhm.
I think Marco Rubio did try and speak to someone in China. I've not seen any report that he managed to speak to Wang Yi, who would be the obvious person. I don't know what message did get through to China in the end. I am sure that China did not contact Tehran. There wouldn't have been the time to anyway.
Mhm.
Um, but the Americans, who are now very anxious to keep the Chinese on side with this, they do not want the Straits of Hormuz closed, and they hope to persuade the Chinese also to take steps to prevent the Straits of Hormuz being closed. So Trump announced again unilaterally that the United States is going to ease sanctions on Iran to allow Iran to continue to export oil to China. Now, I mean, it's ludicrous because those sanctions have never been enforced anyway. I mean, it's not as if the Chinese or the Iranians have paid any attention to those sanctions. But anyway, he's made that announcement. So again, one mustn't take what the Americans say about these things too seriously. The point is that Trump himself was in a panic that the Iranians were about to close the Straits of Hormuz.
Mhm.
And he was even prepared to beg the Chinese to try to help them to get them to keep it open. It's the story I always say, that the Americans, like they do it with the Russians, they want to use China like a tap that they can turn on and off whenever they like.
Yeah. Another confusing part is this massive ordnance penetrator. So supposedly, I mean, first after they did that, it seems all indications are saying that it didn't really cause much of a damage that they anticipated. But then later they said they did. Trump said, they pretty much destroyed all the Iranian nuclear facility, what have you, underground, facility. And then even the Iranian come out and saying, yes, it caused a lot of damage, or, we demand you to give us compensation. Some people are saying this is kind of a theater That they do this in order to give
Yeah.
the US the reason to stop the bombing? Is that what's going on there? Very confusing.
Well, I think there's an element. I think there's an element of this. I think the concern is in Iran and in other places that if it were confirmed and accepted by everybody that these Iranian nuclear facilities have survived the American attack, then Trump would be under immense pressure to resume the bombing.
Hmm.
And for that reason, they don't want to give him reasons to do that because I mean, Iran has suffered quite badly from this. I mean, we'll probably talk all about that further. My own senses, and again, I've had some information about this from various people. There's one instance where I've actually been getting quite a lot of information, by the way, is that almost certainly the facilities have not been destroyed. What has probably been badly damaged inside the facilities are the centrifuges, because the centrifuges operate on a continuous motion
Hmm.
system. And if the power is turned off and there's massive vibrations, these are delicate instruments and they can be, broken and adjusted and things of that kind. But Iran has shown in the past that it has the capacity to mass produce these centrifuges. So there's no reason to think that they can't do this again. So whatever damage has been done to the centrifuges, they can probably replace them. And it does increasingly look as if they managed to remove the highly enriched uranium
Hmm.
from the Fordel, from the facility, and that it is still in their possession, and that they still possess the ability to enrich it further up to the level that would be needed to make a nuclear bomb. So on that basis, this operation failed.